早晨，歡迎大家嚟參加。嗱，大家靜一靜喎，靜一靜。大家早晨，嗱，歡迎大家嚟參加咧今日嘅呢個會議。呢個會議咧非常之重要，好多人咧就問我咧，家下個遊民收容所點樣啊？喺86街嗰度，家下情況點樣啊？Today, this morning, we are very happy to have a New York State Assemblyman, Mr. Colton here, to explain us what's going on now. The homeless shelter 86th Street. Mr. Colton, okay, before I hand the floor to you, so our New York State Assemblyman, Mr. Chang, say a few words for us first. 另外咧就趙正安先生咧，就係鄭永佳先生嘅辦公室嘅顧問嚟嘅。鄭生，嚟同我 ，OK， 鄭生講幾句話先啦，好嘛？你做翻譯啦，你同佢做翻譯啦。
羅先生，多謝晒各位，多謝晒係温 Colton 係代表你個呢個地區，我係鄭永佳代表喺發大咗嗰個地區，呢個 outside 86街係 outside 我個地區，不過咧人民所咧係全紐約 ，OK。跟住我希望咧係Bill Colton 咧係點樣解釋我嘅方法，咁就希望咧我哋喺 Upstate New York 咧派咗 pass 乜嘢嗰啲 law 嗰啲 bill 派咗幫我哋，不過我哋諗住咧至緊要呢個11月咧選嗰個 mayor 咧係至緊要啊，我諗住係派咗係 cut 住 stop 住係乜嘢呢啲人民所，咁就我哋華人係至緊要咧。而家呢個月咧，呢個係主要下個禮拜二咧，我哋要係 early voting primary， 佢就冇唔記得選舉而家，至到呢個禮拜二。不過11月至緊要咧係邊個係 mayor 咧？係11月至緊要，跟住可唔可以有呢個人民所以得唔得 ？OK，I give my floor to
我幫正員補充幾句，因為86街人民所咧喺我哋嘅區咧離開3條街嘅啫。正員嘅區咧去到83街，22 Avenue，咁咧雖然咧嘅人民所唔係直接喺正員個區咧，但係咧啲人流影下啲住宅都喺附近㗎嘛，都會影響㗎嘛，所以正員不嬲都係由頭到尾都係支持同州議員 Colton 同埋羅博士同埋莊文儀議員嗰啲同埋第啲嘅僑領去反對呢個收容所嘅問題嘅，因為會影響治安同埋生意。咁咧正議員咧佢包括個區咧連埋低個 height 上邊個 Park Bensonhurst 八大道嗰一帶嘅，浙江公啱啱喺 Colton 個區咧喺隔離一上一下，咁咧正議員咧係共和黨 ，Colton 係民主黨，但係咧兩位議員咧都係咁多年來都係以人為本，係對事就唔係對黨嘅。OK， 就希望大家多多支持，同埋佢正議員話咧，下個禮拜二咧。如果你係登記民主黨嘅話咧，就記住去投票。呢個權益係你哋嘅，你一定要反映呢個聲，因為越多人投票咧，即係我做選舉嘅，幫人助選嘅，好多年啦。我哋通常咧去睇咧，第一樣係睇數據嘅。喂，點解即係我多舉例？點解當年某啲議員、某啲華人議員競選市長或者競選某啲職位咧，佢第一個站點解去猶太人區咧？因為猶太人嗰度係票倉，有數據睇到幾多個 percent， 幾多人去，即你話佢實際又好，話佢乜嘢都好啦。因為時間有限、金錢有限、人力有限，佢就要嘅係篩選。即係當然每一個候選人、每一個政客都應該係每一個市民都要同佢對話嘅，但係幾百萬人都冇可能有咁嘅時間，所以就會去猶太人區，因為嗰度係票倉。跟住或者去非洲人區，因為非洲人亦都經常投票，所以我哋華人咧要多啲投票，因為我睇數據嗰陣時候，即係我自己做助選嘅，做助選經理嘅，我都唔會叫即係白講我都唔會叫正議員專登去某一個嗰頭，去花一個鐘頭嘅時間去應酬5個選民，即係呢個係數據嘅係咁樣指出嚟嘅，所以希望多啲華人 OK 叫埋你哋屋企人去投票。Thank you.
Mr. Colton,
okay, Mr. Colton, they always talking to us. What's going on now? 86th Street, the homeless shelter. They complain that the location not so good because they're near the school there, daycare center there, citizen center there, and supermarket. All the 99-cent store all over there. The one WH salesman. That's no. They lock the door, talking to the owner, the house owner. You have to sell your house now because later on, if you are homeless shelter over there, your house is supposed to $1 million. If later on, probably only 800,000 or something like that, you have to sell your house now. That's no good. That's all. That's a salesman. They lock their door. They told me that they complained to me. Not supposed to do that. No. Okay, Mr. Colton, I hand the floor to you. Explain to them. They always ask us, what's going on now? They're so worried about the homeless shelter, 86th Street. Okay. 嗱，今日咧，我哋好高興請到眾議員寇登先生解釋下家下咧86間嘅收容所咧係情況點樣樣。OK， now Mr. Colton.
And if you can translate.
Oh, okay, I do my best.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
大家聽一聽咯喎。
This is a very, very big issue in the community, as Dr. Law said. And it's big because these homeless shelters do not help homeless people and they hurt the neighborhood.
嗱，呢個咧非常重要嘅議題嚟嘅。呢個咧收容所咧會咧傷害我哋嘅社區，非常對我哋社區咧不利嘅。
So we are continuing to fight it, and I very strongly believe that this homeless shelter will never happen in this neighborhood.
嗱，我哋咧繼續鬥爭，佢認為咧呢個嘅收容所咧唔會喺我哋社區建立嘅。 在佢哋努力之下咧，呢個收容所唔會成功嘅。
We have stopped them from doing anything for over a year now. Since last July, they have not gone forward at all. They have been stopped, and one of the reasons for that is because this whole community is united against that shelter. We're very lucky. We have Democrats and Republicans fighting it. And I want to say that, you know, Lester Chang, who just spoke, the Assemblyman in the next district, he's been very strong coming here, making it clear he's against it. I and Susan have been very strong being against it. And Steve Chang, the state senator, has also been right there with us, being very strong, opposing this shelter happening.
嗱，呢個問題咧。 已經有1年多㗎啦，自從7月開始，我哋社區咧不斷咁努力鬥爭。多謝咧Mr. Colton 先生同埋眾議員咧鄭永佳先生同埋咧陳學理先生，紐約州嘅 Senator 咧就參議員就共同努力，大家一齊共同努力。家下咧佢哋咧仲未有做到乜嘢嘢嘅，喺嗰個就遊民所咧仲未曾有乜行動。
So the fact that your 4 elected officials have been fighting for you, fighting together with you to stop that shelter, makes a very strong message. Both Democrats and Republicans sends a very strong message that this developer is not going to be able to just walk in and put a shelter in this neighborhood. We are going to fight it all the way.
嗱，我哋咧因為有4個議員咧，由鄭永佳先生眾議員。 呢個參議員咧陳學理先生，紐約市咧Council Member 咧市議員咧Susan Chang 咧同埋 Mr. Colton 先生咧4位咧共同咁樣努力嚟到鬥爭，所以佢哋呢個咧建築商啊，到目前為止都仲未有咩行動，做唔到咩嘢出嚟嘅。Okay.
So where are we at now? As I said, for the last year we have totally stopped them. Shut them down. They haven't been able to make any progress. We have not won the battle yet, but we are very close to winning it, and the elections on Tuesday are going to be very important.
嗱，我哋鬥爭咗1年咧，佢哋建築商到目前為止冇乜成功做到啲咩嘢。嗱，係我哋下個禮拜2咧，6月24號 June 24，June 24，嗱，我哋選舉日。 大家一定要去投票，投埋我一個鄭永佳先生講過咧，大家一定要投票。11月嘅時候咧選市長最重要㗎啦，唔好唔記得11月嘅時候大家要去投票。
There are 2 candidates running for mayor that are very strongly against this homeless shelter. and that have made it very clear. Andrew Cuomo is against it, and so is Curtis Sliwa. And right now, Andrew Cuomo is running in the Democratic primary. Only Democrats can vote in that primary. Curtis Sliwa is running in the Republican primary. Only Republicans can vote in that primary. So I strongly, have said we need to have both Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa win their primaries. Then both major parties will be led by a candidate who is against this homeless shelter going forward.
OK，市長競選人咧有兩個，一個咧就係前州長咧 Mr. Cuomo 先生，另外一個就 Sliwa 先生。佢呢個咧秦塞威嗰個先生咧，佢係共和黨嘅。咁我呢個 Mr. Cuomo 咧就係民主黨嘅。多數咧選舉嘅時候咧，多數係呢兩位先生咧就出嚟競選啦。希望能夠呢位先生邊個贏到嘅時候咧，能夠幫我哋即係唔好建呢個收容所。
Now, in the Democratic primary, most of the other candidates are for the homeless shelter, unfortunately. Mr. Mondami, I've spoken to him personally. He is totally in favor of that homeless shelter.
嗱，好唔好彩咧？有啲咧候選人咧，希望咧能夠建立一個收容所。有一個候選人咧叫做名單年咧，阿 Mr. Colton 先生咧，佢講過話嘅，傾過偈嘅，佢話同意起呢個收容所。
Brad Lander, another candidate, is for the homeless shelter. He's made that very clear.
有另外一個咧叫 Brad Lander 咧，又係同意建立呢個收容所。
Scott Stringer, I have spoken to personally, and he kind of is more open to being against the homeless shelter, but frankly, he has not taken any clear stand publicly against the homeless shelter, and I'm afraid he will give in to the pressure.
另外一個候選人咧叫做 Scott Stringer 咧，雖然話佢係公開咧就唔起呢個收容所，但係咧佢仲未咧決定點樣做法。
Now, in the Republican primary, Curtis Sliwa is clearly against the homeless shelter. He's been visiting it. He's come. He stood with us. He is against it. And the other candidates really, I don't think really they've taken any stand on the homeless shelter. They may not even know about it. But he clearly is against the homeless shelter.
嗱，呢個候選人咧，市長候選人咧叫做 Sliwa 先生咧，佢係公開咧反對建立呢個收容所嘅。佢亦都嚟過我哋呢個區域，嚟過睇過呢個地方。
So the best thing that could happen for us in stopping this homeless shelter would be if Andrew Cuomo was the Democratic candidate and Curtis Sliwa was the Republican candidate.
嗱，兩位候選人咧就係頭先講過咧，共和黨嘅 Sliwa 先生咧，同埋民主黨嘅Cuomo 先生咧嘅兩位先生咧都係公開咧唔好起呢個收容所嘅。
So that's going to be very important on election day, because if the candidate for mayor who gets chosen to head their party is against the homeless shelter, they have the power to stop it.
嗱，第日咧市長咧，如果能夠競選成功嘅時候咧，佢哋有一個權力有呢個權力就推翻呢個收容所嘅建立嘅。OK。
Now, if the developer also is watching this election very carefully, because if a candidate for mayor gets elected who supports the homeless shelter, that encourages the developer to keep fighting. But if a candidate for mayor is elected who is against the homeless shelter, then that developer is not going to have a lot of hope to look forward to, because the mayor has the power to stop it. And the developer knows that. So if a candidate gets elected for mayor who is against the homeless shelter, like Andrew Cuomo or Curtis Sliwa, the developer is going to realize he can't win, and I believe he's going to back off.
嗱，呢個咧最重要㗎啦。呢個建築商，我哋叫建築商，佢知道咧邊一個候選人咧就 唔起呢個收容所嘅。如果每邊一個候選人好似係Mr. Cuomo咧，我哋叫郭莫先生咧，如果佢贏咗呢個市長嘅位置嘅時候咧，呢個建築商咧，佢咧就會唔能夠做乜嘢嘢㗎啦。佢知道唔可以做咩嘢啊，因為個市長咧有權力唔起呢個收容所。
Now, that being said, even if a candidate is elected mayor who supports the homeless shelter, that doesn't mean that we can't stop it. I have to be honest with you. We have the tools, we have the unity, we have the strength to stop this homeless shelter, even if we get a bad candidate who supports the homeless shelter for mayor. We will still continue fighting, and I'll tell you why I believe we can still stop it.
OK， 嗱，寇東先生講咧，雖然呢個市長候選人贏咗呢個市長嘅位置，唔係表示我哋唔可以停止呢個收容所嘅建立嘅。OK，Mr. Colton 係會教我哋點樣做法。OK，Mr. Colton gonna teach us what to do。
Okay. And basically we're gonna keep doing what you have been doing in the past. We're gonna be showing strength. Now, here's where we're at right now. The developer has applied for a permit to demolish the existing building. All right, and the building department has given him that permit. However, all of us, have been contacting the building commissioner. We've been raising issues with the building department's permits, and we have argued that that permit should be revoked, should be taken down. The building department should not issue that permit because we believe that that property has asbestos, a very bad chemical on it, that property is on land which has a very high water table, so that they're not going to be able to support the building that they want to build there because of that water table, and they would have to change the terms and the conditions of the permit very seriously in order to be able to even try to build a building that high on that property with a high water level.
OK， 嗱，寇登先生講咧，我哋可以做嘅一件事咧，最重要，因為呢個建築商啊，佢要咧拆除呢個舊嘅房子，拆除呢個舊屋。拆咗舊屋嘅時候咧，佢要申請一個准許證。准許證咧，我哋咧就可以去樓宇局嗰度咧講一講，佢哋呢個准許證啊啱唔啱，有冇犯規？我哋發現到佢呢個准許證咧，佢有石棉，我哋中國人有石棉喺呢個建築物喺入邊係違規嘅 ，OK？ 所以咧，我哋可以做好多事情嗱，令到呢個建築商咧好多嘢唔可以做嘅，佢有石棉喺嗰度。
And the building department has recognized that all of the elected officials, both Democrat and Republican, are against the homeless shelter, and they are agreeing that that permit should not be kept, that it should be removed because of the serious objections that we have all together raised. So it's both Democrats and Republicans who have let the building department know that that permit is wrong. It has serious problems. And you want to know what? A month ago, the building department revoked. They put it on hold. They issued a stop work order so that they could reconsider the permit.
因為我哋咧民選嘅官員咧，好似鄭永佳先生、寇登先生啦、阿 Susan 啊，同埋咧阿陳學理先生咧，大家佢哋嘅共同咁樣努力，話反對呢個建立呢個收容所，同埋樓宇局發現咧，佢哋呢個咧申請呢個准許證咧好多問題喺入邊，所以咧佢認為咧就應該咧停止佢拆除呢個舊嘅房屋。
So the building department right now has put everything on hold. They have taped to the fence of that building, of that property, a stop work order, which means that until they investigate further, no one can do any work on that homeless shelter property.
OK， 到目前為止，樓宇局咧發現咗頭先講過咧，佢有問題嘅，家下唔準佢就開工，我哋廣東人叫做唔準佢開工。
And I believe, in my personal opinion, that right now they're waiting to see who wins the election. Because the building department is controlled by the mayor. And if there's a mayor who's against the homeless shelter, they're going to be told, do not approve it. If there's a mayor who's in favor of the homeless shelter, then they're going to be told, go ahead and issue the permit. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be that way, but that's the way politics has been operating in New York City. Hopefully it's going to change with this election. And hopefully the building department is going to really do an investigation, and they will find, in my opinion, that there's a problem with asbestos on the property, that there's a problem with the water table, that they cannot build the building the way they say they want to do it without causing flooding. You know, if you remember, some of you may remember if you walked on 86th Street and 25th Avenue a couple of years ago, the sidewalk was full of water. There was water coming out of that property because the owner at that time must have tried to do something. Maybe it was burying x-rays because it was a medical office at that time and they had x-ray equipment. They may have tried to bury it deep down and they may have broken the water level and the water came pouring out. So there was water all over the streets around that property a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago. And it was a big problem. And, you know, my office was involved in it. We were contacting the building department, complaining about it. The city was at that time saying it was coming from the property. The property owner was saying the city's pipes must have broken and it was coming from the city. The reality is there is a problem with water, and if the building department does the proper tests and examines it, they're going to find, I believe, that there is a very high water table that will not support that size of a building. They would have to put in pumps that would have to run 24 hours a day, and it would be very, very expensive to do that. The building owner would have to do that. Otherwise, the streets would be flooded. Water would be pouring out of the building. And the building department is, I believe, if they look at the tests and they do them properly, are going to find that's true. So at this point, there's a stop work order that nobody can go forward until the building department looks at our complaints about water and about asbestos on that property.
OK， 阿寇登先生講咧，嗱呢個樓宇局咧係市長咧，好有權力咧影響佢哋嘅，佢哋叫佢哋做乜嘢，佢哋就做乜嘢。如果話呢個新嘅市長話唔同意起呢個收容所，講俾樓宇局聽，樓宇局咧就會停止呢個建立嘅收容所啦。家下呢個地方咧又 Mr. Colton 先生講過好大兩大嘅問題，一個有石棉嘅問題，第二個問題咧就漏水嘅問題。嗱，甩佬 water 屋咧就漏水嘅問題，兩個大問題嚇。就如果佢能夠解決呢兩個大問題咧，我哋咧就唔同意，絕對佢哋唔可以咧就進行建立呢個收容所嘅。
So that's where we're at right now. The building department has issued a stop work order, and they are re-examining the objections that we have made, the community has made, and its elected officials have made against going forward with that property.
咧樓宇局咧家下咧點樣啊？佢家下咧就睇下呢個准許證。家下目前為止，樓宇局咧係未批准呢個收容所嘅建立嘅。佢睇下呢個情況點樣樣。頭先講過好多次啊，石棉同埋漏水嘅大問題嘅。
Now there's one other thing that has happened in the last few months. The building owner, the building department, the homeless shelter owner has asked for permission to go on to the property of the neighboring property owners because he needs to do certain things. He wants to demolish the shelter project. the building, the property, and he wants to use dynamite to do that. So in order to do that, he has to go on to the neighboring property's owner's property, and he has to put certain protective things up, some protective structures, to protect from what happens when he demolishes the property with dynamite. So we were involved with that, and he asked for permission. His lawyer, sent letters to the people who were the neighboring, the 4 property owners that were neighboring on the side of the property, and they had a lawyer, and I got involved, and I sent a letter to the other lawyer, and basically what I said was, we will not agree to let you on our property because there's problems. One, there's a problem with the water table. And if you do anything to break the water line, the waters are going to come out and flood our property. And secondly, we believe there was contamination on that property of the homeless shelter owner. We said that if you have your people come on our property, they're going to be dredging contamination onto our property. And we don't want that. We also said that we demand that if he were to come, he has to give money to the property owners, compensate them. And he has to get high insurance that will compensate them if any damage is done to their property. So if he causes water to flood onto it, he has to pay for their damages. If he causes asbestos to go onto their property, he has to pay for the damage of removing it. So we sent that letter, and at that point, the building owner stopped. He didn't ask any further. He stopped writing to them, and we're right now waiting for his response or his attempt to go to court, because it was clear. He threatened to go to court and said, if you don't agree, I'm going to go to court. Well, he hasn't gone to court yet. I think, again, the developer is waiting to see what happens in this election. Because if a mayor is chosen who's against the project, then they're going to walk away from it, I believe.
OK， 嗱，寇東先生講咗好多啦。嗱，呢個咧就開發商咧、建築商咧，想咧點樣咧用炸藥啊？我哋dynamite叫炸藥，廣東人叫炸藥啊。炸咧就剷除呢個舊嘅房屋，同埋咧佢咧希望呢個附近嗰啲鄰居啊，I think so 4 family 咧，4呢4家人啦，4家人就希望咧呢4家人咧能夠同意佢哋咁樣做法。但係寇登先生講咧，呢個非常之麻煩嘅。如果佢整到嗰啲批啊漏水嘅時候咧，就係有驗污嘅問題，有驗污咧整到人哋屋企啊、個家庭啊、嗰啲食水啊各方面咧，佢要賠償嘅。OK， 呢個啊建築商咧要賠償，要負責賠償。仲有第二個問題咧，可能有石棉嘅問題，頭先已經講過啦。佢家下到目前為止呢個建築商啊，又要等下，就雙方嘅律師咧都有個信來往啊。好似 Mr. Colton 先生咧就 write a letter to， write a letter， 同時咧就雙方嘅律師咧啲信咧來往。但係呢個建築商啦，我相信佢咧要等下我哋市長咧邊個選到嘅市長啦，再有行動。如果嗰啲市長咧就唔同意建呢個收容所嘅時候咧，呢個建築商咧Mr. Colton 講咧，佢會停止建呢個收容所。
So that's where that is at. Nothing is going forward at this point because the developer, I think, we've raised the real issues, important issues, and the developer is worried, but he wants to see whether he's going to have a mayor that will support him or a mayor that is against this homeless shelter. And so our best hope is on Tuesday, go out and make sure you vote and your neighbors vote for the 2 candidates who are against the homeless shelter. If you are a registered Democrat, you have to vote in the Democratic primary. If you're a registered Republican, you have to vote in the Republican primary. Our best situation would be if both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, someone wins who's against the homeless shelter. And it's possible that that can happen. Then, no matter which one of them wins in November, we'll have somebody who is against this homeless shelter going forward. If that doesn't happen, and if somebody wins the election who supports the homeless shelter, then we continue to fight. And I believe we can still win, because the local officials in our community are in solid agreement against the homeless shelter. And the people in our community are in solid agreement against the homeless shelter. And with that kind of strength, even if the mayor is against us, which I hope will not happen, I hope we'll get a candidate for mayor who will win and who will be from the very beginning against the homeless shelter and will stop the homeless shelter. But we can best guarantee that that happens by, number one, voting Saturday, Sunday, and then the final primary day is on Tuesday, June 24th, so you must go out and vote. And spread the word to your friends and neighbors. Whether they're a Democrat or a Republican, both can vote in their primary. Republicans in the Republican primary, Democrats in the Democratic primary. And in both primaries, you have a candidate who is against the homeless shelter. So we're very lucky. We're very lucky that we don't have a situation where one party has people that are for it, the other party has people that are for it. There's somebody in each primary who is against the homeless shelter. And we got to make sure, you need to make sure they get elected. And then, if somebody against the homeless shelter wins in November, no matter which one wins, we'll have somebody who will be fighting together with us on our side, who recognizes that these homeless shelters do not help homeless people, and they hurt the neighborhoods, and they must be stopped.
嗱，Mr. Colton 講咧，如果你登記為共和黨嘅即係選舉咧，就投票就共和黨嘅候選人；如果你登記為民主黨嘅，你哋去選舉選一個民主黨嘅候選人。希望我哋咧就能夠選出一個市長咧同意或者唔同意。就建立呢個收容所，希望能夠咩 Colton 先生講咧，能夠呢個新嘅市長咧就唔起呢個收容所，反對建立呢個收容所 ，OK， 反對建立呢個收容所。如果係好不幸，我哋呢兩位候選人咧，共和黨候選人、民主黨候選人都係輸咗嘅時候咧，就呢個市長咧話同意建立呢個收容所嘅時候咧，我哋社區咧。都會共同嘅努力繼續鬥爭，繼續咧就去法庭又好，請律師又好，反對建立呢個收容所，我哋唔會停止嘅。
So I very strongly believe we will stop this homeless shelter. It'll be easier to do it if we elect a mayor who's against the homeless shelter. But even in the worst case, where there's a mayor who supports the homeless shelter, we will still continue fighting, and we will continue to fight to stop it, and I believe we're going to win, because I think that site is the wrong place. I think it has the wrong physical conditions. It's got, I believe, asbestos. I believe it's got a high water table. I believe it's got other physical problems that would not make building that shelter possible or a good thing. It will be very expensive. And I believe that with that, even with a mayor that is in favor of it, they're going to have a lot of trouble. This developer would be much smarter if he gets rid of that property and goes on someplace else where maybe the community is not as strong as it is here. So I believe we're going to win this one way or the other, but it would be much easier if we elect candidates in both parties who are against the homeless shelter.
嗱，寇根先生講咧，如果將來咧就11月選舉嘅時候咧， 呢個候選人贏到呢個市長嘅時候咧，對我哋咧比較好有利，同埋咧容易好多，唔使咧好似家下咧成日去示威啊乜嘢，又好似阿咩啦空無先生講過咧，佢當選嘅時候，佢唔同意建立呢個收容所嘅啊。Mr. Colton agree that if he elected against the homeless shelter, that's a good news for us.
Yes.
Okay. 嗱，如果
And luckily, we have candidates in both parties that are opposing the homeless shelter.
嗱，呢個啊，好似頭先講過咧，共和黨候選人又好，民主黨候選人咧，都係兩個咧都公開咧，佢就係唔同意建立呢個收容所嘅。對我哋嚟講咧，呢個係好消息嚟嘅。
Does anybody have any questions or anything that they want to say about it?
嗱，大家有咩問題咧，就提出嚟同Mr. Colton 先生講一講 ，OK？ Mr. Colton, they always ask any time limit about this homeless shelter. How long we have to wait to know that they stop the build the homeless shelter or something like that?
Well,
any time limit, any.
If we elect a candidate in both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party who's against it, then I think the time is going to be very short when this developer is going to decide he has to get out of it, that he's not going to be able to win. So that will bring a quick end, I believe, to this fight.
Okay.
If we elect somebody for mayor who is in favor of it, then it's going to take longer.
Okay.
Because then we're going to have to convince the developer that we're not going to give up. And we've almost, I think, convinced the developer of that already.
Okay.
But, if he has a mayor that's in favor of the homeless shelter, he may hang on longer and try to keep fighting to put his shelter there. So we'll know by Tuesday what the situation is. Because if we have a mayor in the Democratic Party who's against it, which so far Andrew Cuomo has made it clear he's against it. He's promised that he's going to stop. He's seen the site. And in the Republican primary, if we have Curtis Lewa win, then we'll have a candidate in both the Democratic and the Republican Party who are against the shelter. And I think that will very quickly convince the developer that he's got to stop, that this is not going to happen here.
寇登先生講咧，如果呢兩位候選人咧，佢哋咧都非常之反對建立呢個收容所。如果是但一個贏咗呢個市長嘅位置嘅時候咧，呢個咧建築商啊，好快就停止建一個收容所㗎啦。如果就係唔好彩，就係邊一個市長贏咗市長咧，佢話要建一個收容所咧，就會時間會拖長好多㗎啦。我哋又繼續示威啊，maybe we have to go to the court, right? Eventually we have to go to the court.
We may eventually have to go to court.
Yeah.
Especially if the mayor who gets elected supports the homeless shelter. Then we may have to go to court. And, I've done that before.
Yeah.
There have been other groups that have organized it and done it, and we can win in court, in my opinion. But I would like to, do it the shorter way rather than the longer way.
Yeah. 如果你呢個市長候選人如果贏咗嘅時候咧，同意建立收容所嘅時候咧，好唔好彩咧？我哋會繼續鬥爭嘅，時間就會長好多㗎啦。可能咧，阿 Mr. Colton 先生已經做過，可能去法庭嗰度court嚇，去法庭嗰度鬥爭嘅，就反對去法庭反對建立呢個收容所嘅。Okay.
And by the way, Lester Chang, who's the assembly member in the next district, and Steve Chan and Susan Wong was the councilman, Steve Chan, the state senator. We've discussed this possibility. So we have talked about if we need to go to court, how we can do that. But I hope we won't have to. But if we have to, we'll do that and we will stop it.
嗱，呢4位民選官員咧，鄭永佳先生、寇登先生、Susan Wong 同埋呢個咧陳學理先生咧，佢哋會共同討論下我哋應該點樣做法，將來點樣做法。OK， 大家有咩問題啊
？Mr. Colton, so for the 86th Street, we have a united front against building homeless shelter. There's an IBUU, Quad Street. There's also Chinese community protesting against homeless shelter every day, 24 hours. Do you want to say any comments on that situation?
I think it's a similar situation in that these developers get huge amounts of money from the city. If they weren't getting that money, because if the mayor didn't support it and didn't give them that kind of money, they would not build homeless shelters. But they're building them because they're getting huge amounts of money. So on Avenue U, it's a similar. Now there's one slight problem that Avenue U has that we don't have. Unfortunately, they were not told it was going to be a homeless shelter. They were told it was going to be cheaper housing, affordable housing. And so a lot of the adjoining property owners, they said, okay, you know, housing with less rents, that's not bad, we'll accept that. And they signed agreements with the developer to let the developer go on their property. And then when the developer announced he's building a homeless shelter, they said, no, we don't support that, we're going to fight that. But they already had signed agreements. And so they're in a situation where the owner already has an agreement signed by the adjoining property owners that he can go on their property. They're fighting that now. And I think even there, the developer is not going ahead until he sees who's getting elected mayor. I think they may have a written agreement, a contract with the city already signed there. They do not have a contract signed by the city here on 86th Street. So again, that gives us a lot more hope that, you know, we're in a stronger legal position. But either way, I think we do have to fight them, and I hope that we're going to have a mayor who's not going to support this. You know, there was an article in the New York, I think it was in the New York Times, a couple of days ago that I got. The mayor has signed contracts with hotels that are going to cost the city $1 billion. And the Times is questioning, now that there's less homeless people on the streets, because the number of people coming from other countries has been reduced, why does the city continue paying $1 billion for hotels to house people? And it's becoming a big scandal. They also found out that just like the developer at 86th Street, he gave a lot of money to Mayor Adams.
And the donation.
We've campaign donations. And every member of his family was donating $2,100. I don't know why they picked that particular number, but they were. We checked it into the campaign finance records. And last year, like 20 people in his family, each in a very short period of time, gave $2,100. Maybe he had a fundraiser just for the Sandu family. All right, so also it was found that in this $1 billion contract with the hotels, a lot of people gave money, campaign contributions to Mayor Adams, who are controlling these hotels. So they were saying, this is something wrong, this has got to be changed. The city's spending $1 billion. Well, likewise, we have the same problem here, and I did not check the Avenue U developer and whether he gave money to the mayor or not, but, you know, maybe that's something that should also be looked at. There's a pattern developing here.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Now, Mr. Colton, they asked, do we have a rally, you know, later on or something like that?
Yeah, I think we should. The committee will meet, you know, the United Community. And by the way, I want to tell you how much I have to commend the organizers, the people who have been going every day. I think it's over 300 days now. We reduced the number a little bit because we were afraid people with the sun or with the cold, you know, might get sick. But the demonstrations have been going on for over 300 days, and the people who have been there, we really have to give them tremendous congratulations and respect and thanks, because they have kept this fight going, and they, I believe, have just about convinced the developer that he's not going to be able to successfully put a shelter there. He has one hope that maybe he can elect somebody for mayor, you know, and then he'll give them a lot of money, and maybe he can convince them to let him go. But even that, I think he doesn't really expect at this point. I think he realizes that the days of his hope for building a homeless shelter on that spot are fast disappearing. that he's not going to be able to do it. And, and thanks to the people who worked on 86th Street, the United Community Front that's been organizing it and staffing it, the merchants on 86th Street, they really have to be commended because they made so many donations of food, of water, of flags, of all kinds of things to show support for that protest. And it was probably the most successful protest we've had in the city, probably in the history of the city. I don't remember any other protest that has been this long and this strong. So, really we want to thank all the members of the protest committee and all the, members who have been going there and showing up in hot weather, cold weather, just continuing to express the opposition of the community. And of course also to the people riding in the cars. Because so many people riding in the cars were tooting their horns in support. So this community is united. I've never seen any community as united and as strong as what we've seen in the opposition to this homeless shelter. And that's a very good sign. And, the elected officials are with you, Democrat and Republican. They are with you in this fight, and we're going to win this fight because of all of that.
聽到寇登先生講啊，大家要共同努力繼續鬥爭，繼續就係希望呢個收容所咧建立唔成功嘅，已經好耐啊，200 days 甚至300 days， 300日啊，已經我哋鬥爭咗300日咁耐嘅。同時咧，我哋示威嘅時候，好多人啊俾食物我哋啊，俾水我哋飲啊，好多謝咧大家呢個即係有個會嘅呢個 committee 咧就有個會啊，會討論下將來我哋繼唔繼續示威點樣示威，喺咩時候示威。又好多謝咧社區嘅人士咧，我哋餐館又好 ，I know the restaurant donate the food for us, the water for us, they a lot of donation. Thank you very much. 餐館又好，超市又好，成日俾嗰啲食物我哋㗎，隻水啊咁樣啊。OK， 我哋繼續鬥爭，唔好放棄啊！多謝大家。有咩問題啊？大家有咩問題啊？問下啦，唔緊要㗎。最緊要問下Mr. Colton 鄭永佳先生兩個競選呢個議員都喺呢度嘅 ，OK？ 大家有咩問題？嗱，你哋成日問我咧，
係咪今晚6點半去Central Park？ 5點半啊
？5點半做咩？
去 Central Park
做咩？
做地位？做地 evening。
Yes, at 5:30, Andrew Cuomo is coming to Cephalo Park.
Oh, okay.
Come on,
He's come back to the area now 4 times.
Okay.
He saw the homeless shelter. The very first time he saw what was going on there, and I explained it to him, and immediately he publicly said he's against it.
Okay.
And he is going to be coming back tonight in Cephalo Park at 5:30.
5:30.
Yeah.
嗱，大家聽一聽啦。我哋候選人啊，空無先生咧5點半喺呢個 Cephalo Park 見我哋，大家知道呢個 Cephalo Park not too far from here， 好近呢度嘅。我哋呢度如果你行去咧，差唔多15分鐘或者咩都 10 minutes from here。10 minutes。
喺我哋做活動嗰度啊，個草地嗰度啊。跳舞嗰度，係跳舞嗰度嚇，咁嗌多啲人過去嗰度，係啊。
5點半我哋咧成日喺朝頭早喺嗰度打太極嘅，我都喺嗰度打嘅嚇。5點半喺 Cephalo Park， 我哋嗰個 park 咧，我哋成日咧警察咧成日嚟巡嘅。Last meeting 62nd precinct they had a moped, the confiscate a lot of moped over there.
This is a problem in Cephalo Park that we've been working on, and hopefully we'll be able to put a stop to. There's been these young people with mopeds, and they've been speeding all around the park. It's a threat to hurting somebody, knocking them down, and these mopeds are supposed to be registered, and they're not registered. So we've been working together with the precinct to start confiscating these mopeds, seizing them, and until they get registered. If they're not registered, the police have a right to take them. And so we've been trying to get the police to do that. We also last year, during the summer, because this happens especially in the summer, when there's so many young people and senior citizens in the park. Last year in the summer, we were able to get a police car stationed in the park. And so we're working on making that happen again. There's one little problem is that right now we don't have a permanent commanding officer in the 6-2. Inspector, Eddie Lau, who was the commanding officer, was transferred. I believe he'll be getting a promotion, but they have not named a commanding officer yet. So that's a problem, anytime you don't have a permanent commanding officer, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But we're working on that. Susan Zhang is working on that, and I think Lester is working on that.
6-2, yeah.
Yeah, with the 6-2. So again, your united elected officials are working together, whether they're Democrat or Republican, they're working together to try to get things that are going to help you, protect you. And that's a big advantage our community has.
寇登先生講咧，我哋民選官員咧，鄭永佳先生、寇登先生咧、陳學禮先生啊、蘇莊啊、莊文儀士議員咧，都共同努力咧，維持我哋社區呢個治安嘅。嗱 ，Saffron Park 唔係好遠嘅，咩嗰度10 minutes walk， 由呢度行去差唔多10分鐘行到 Saffron Park 嘅。
3分鐘。
有3分鐘，3分鐘。
你隨你快腳啦。
嗱，呢個公園咧好多問題，有呢個電動車啊，叫做嗰啲 moped 啊，佢英文叫 moped， 咁樣啊，仲有 scooter too， 有 scooter， 仲有嗰啲人遛狗啊。The dog, I like the dog running around. They're supposed to leash, get the leash. They don't want to get the leash. The owner let the dog running around. They complain to me a lot too. There's a dog barking around in the park or something. There's a dangerous too. Now,
I gotta be careful because I have a cat. The dogs will smell the cat.
Yeah. So 呢個公園咧就。家下咧，目前咧就好多問題嘅。寇登先生咧就希望咧呢個警察咧就停架車喺嗰度咧，就我同分局嘅副局長咧講過好多次啦。I talked to Captain Melendez, send the car there as you mentioned before, and put the police car over there, patrol the park a little bit. There's a gamble over there. There's a dangerous too. Gamble, smoke over there. Selling the table in the morning. They occupy the table in the early morning. If we want to use the table,
sometimes there's fights over the table.
Fight for the table. You have to pay for the table $10. 佢哋咧公園咧好唔好彩咧？佢哋霸佢3張台、4張台啊！佢如果你用嗰張台咧，你要俾10蚊嘅，咁樣係唔啱嘅嚇。唔啱嘅，非常之唔啱。有個女人咧帶住2個仔咧，就 two sons very husky son， one senior complains you cannot do that， and then the son come and approach him like that， and then the senior got scared。
Yeah, that's not right. And
that's not right.
We will continue pressing to make sure that the precinct deals with those kind of situations.
Yeah.
And I think they're trying. It's
trying their best, but
it's not easy.
嗱，62分局咧仲未有個正局長，我哋叫正局長，佢家下有一個叫副局長嘅啫，有一個副局長，希望咧快脆啲咧有個正局長啊。
咁我講一講啊，個 park 咧依家咧有一班細路仔咧。就開摩托車啊，專開摩托車，佢喺個 park 度咧，轉，咁好容易咧，好危險㗎。冇話摩托車啊，單車都好危險。因為嗱，我講俾你聽啊，12年咧，我女啊喺個公園度，唔係公園啊，喺嗰啲球場啊，即係 PS 105小學嗰度咧，嗰個人踩單車，其實我個女咧喺埋邊啊。我女話翻屋企啦，我話一陣間先啦，哥哥啊，BB 仲喺度玩緊，一陣間先啦咁我就俾個布冧佢食。一邊食喺埋邊嘅喎，嗰個死細路仔踩單車埋嚟，嘣！即刻撞喺佢嗰度，呢度裂咗。喊瞓低咗我低啦，用英文講，你死唔死啊？哇！喊到死我就呢度裂咗啊，粉碎性骨折啊，裂咗啊，嚇到我咩咁？所以我依家話俾你聽咧，嗰啲摩羅西球咧，你哋一開到嚟咧就快啲離開啲佢，你知我意思冇啊？如果咪撞過嚟咧，冇㗎啦，特別你老人家嘛，唔好話你咁老，我都係跌一跌都唔得㗎，所以咧呢樣嘢好重點嗱。琴日咧我老公咧就睇到一單字，就係呢啲摩托車仔 喺86街附近咧偷嘢、搶嘢、氹磚，咁咧所以咧你哋啲袋咧盡量咧就唔好帶咁多錢啦。係啊，呢樣係真㗎，我睇到佢跟住警察追佢哋啊。
呢個問題喺正園個區咧、日落公園咧同埋 Leaf Everson 咧都經常有。我哋成日都同啲長者，尤其長者咧，因為佢專針對啲長者，因為佢哋覺得好黑。摩托車，以前好多年前已經10幾年前單車，佢如果你見到單車喺行人路咧，即係你嚟嗰度側邊咧，我驚你就走埋啲，因為佢哋諗住咧沿住路踩，你個包包咧通常都係側邊噶嘛，搶或者係有條鏈咧一扯就去嘅。如果你見到尤其年青嗰啲咧幾個咧唔似善男信女嘅話，你驚嘅話咧就唔好企入邊，就企近行人近車位嗰度。咁因為你跑咧都容易啲 ，OK？ 因為佢哋好興咧，譬如尤其是啲不良分子咧，佢諗住3、4個 ，OK， 夾住你喺公園隔離，尤其是黑咧，咁你又走唔到 ，OK， 叫又叫唔出嚟，係咪 ？OK， 所以要。I was telling the seniors that even in Sunset Park and Leaf Everson Park, we advise the seniors if they see bikes or mopeds or on the pedestrian side to stay away from the curb, you know. But on the other hand, if they see youngsters, okay, or people that don't look too nice, okay, then stay away from the edge of the park, closer to the curb. But that way, even if they want to run or scream, okay, they won't get cornered.
Okay, two months ago, OK， 聽我講喺公園咧，就2個月之前咧，有個細佬哥就踩嗰啲叫 scooter 啊，嗰啲滑板咁樣，咁啊！鏟到一個咧老人家喺度跳舞啊，跳咗啊個骨斷咗嘅，送咗去醫院嘅 ，OK？ They had the operation 2 months ago. One young kid running the scooter, he hit a senior. The senior fell on the ground and then broke her arm. We had to send to the hospital for operation. We talked to the father. The father, be careful, you know, you got to tell your son what to do or something, not doing that or something. And what the father said, no, he's only a little kid, he doesn't know what's going on. I said, you are the father, you have to tell the kid what to do. See? 嗱，呢個問題咧就係咁嘅。如果你大家有咩問題嘅時候咧，大家你要講出嚟嚇。有個細佬哥踩嗰啲滑板啊，佢就就碰到一個老人家跌咗落去啊，喺度跳舞嘅，個手斷咗啊，送咗去醫院開刀嘅，真係有事嘅，咁嘅事嘅。OK， 我哋同個爸爸講咧，你要管下你個細佬哥。佢點樣講啊？佢話我細佬哥好細啫，佢唔知道乜嘢嘢啊！話你大人咧應該管你個細佬哥咁樣嘅 ，OK？
唔係管，叫佢唔好喺呢啲地方度玩咁快，同埋唔喺度玩，你明白冇啊？
排好公園啊，日日7點鐘嘅時候啊，個個都係出去坐下啦，日日都有啊，日日都有開車，日有板車，日有。你大個細路啊，唔係話細個細路啊，10幾歲嘅啫喎。
我哋下個禮拜去睇啊！我哋下個禮拜去睇下。
我哋坐一成10幾歲。
OK， 阿姨啊，嗱，我同阿姨講咗啦，我哋下個禮拜咧，同埋佢哋咧一齊去行個 park 睇下，即係見到咧，我哋即刻制止佢。唔好咁樣。嗱，重點一件事嚇，你哋希望咧，即係我喺度多嘴講一樣。嗱，今次咧就選市長，希望就選到個葛毛啦。因為點解啊？葛毛咧就講話個 shelter 咧就全部唔喺我哋嘅市區即係我哋住宅裏邊嘅。佢話唔會建喺呢度，盡量幫我哋做到。所以今晚嘢咧，你有咁多人就嗌咁多人過嚟，可以同佢影下相啊，傾下偈，大概10分鐘左右嘅啫，唔會多時間。今晚夜5點半鐘喺我哋。嗰個 part 即係平時間做運動嗰度嚇，嗰個草地嗰度，我寫咗喺個群度㗎啦，琴晚夜，係啦 ，OK。
You will be there too, right? You will be there?
Yes. I tell all of them, fan all of them, you come to the other side. Yeah, you tell the fan. I should come out to maybe once is good. All sell 下啦可以。OK。阿鄭永佳先生仲喺呢度嘅，同埋佢嘅
嘅辦公室啊，呢個顧問咧，趙正安先生仲喺度，有咩問題咧問佢哋嚇。阿 Kenny 講下你個地址啊、電話啊，你咪佢同佢講下。如果有咩問題，佢哋親戚朋友住喺佢嗰度啊，即係佢哋嗰度講啊。
呢度咧正確位置咧喺 Colton 嘅議員區嘅。我知道咧Colton 辦公室咧幾十年嚟咧，入邊都有華人助理去服務嘅，做得非常之好嘅，係我哋其啲議員嘅榜樣。我哋個區其實咧，你離開呢度，如果你行車5分鐘，可能走路咧10分鐘到15，一過咗 FP 去到65街22 FP 嗰邊就係我哋個區啦。因為所以我哋啱啱喺隻隔離。我哋嘅辦公室地址咧喺69街6904方
6904。
一樓。
10分鐘你會搞錯咗佢？
唔知你反正冇你嘅咩諗啦，反正就係
10分鐘啫。你開車10分鐘。
因為我哋隔離係嗰個圖書館啊，我哋隔。
哦，圖書館。
McKinley Library。
係。McKinley Library。
陳學理議員辦公室咧，離開我哋條街喺66街。方啱
嗱，如果你有親戚朋友住喺嗰度咧，去揾佢哋嚇；有親戚朋友住喺佢嗰個區嗰度咧，揾佢哋嚇，佢辦公室嗰度。OK。
仲有啲咩問題啊？姨，你哋譬如咧夜晚咧喺個 park 度有啲咩問題咧，可以反映俾我哋聽，等我哋揾啲警局嗰啲人咧，叫佢過去咁樣嚇。即係你哋有啲咩事係你哋有時成日去行 park 先會見得到啊嘛，你明白我講嘛？
你唔好嫌煩，因為咧接拍你哋覺得煩，呢隻煩咧覺得煩咧就唔出聲咧，我哋又冇嘢同警察講，因為我哋喺八大路嗰邊咧以前咧好多搶劫嘅，咁咧我哋同啲警局咧局長咧講，叫佢加派人手，佢哋話：趙生啊，伍太啊，點樣叫人加強巡邏啊？都冇數據，佢都要向上邊講個驚嚇，要派人哋睇數據。你話呢個禮拜有十幾宗搶劫啊，完全冇數據，冇911，冇311啊驚啊！佢憑乜嘢？憑空講白話同上面講我嘅無啦啦去申10個物，所以你哋打911，你哋唔識打嘅或者嫌麻煩嘅，嗰個伍太嗰個羅博士梗有人會可以幫你，因為你總乜都唔出聲咧，佢哋覺得天下太平啦。
OK。
就I was telling them they have to for the police. If they have any issues, okay, if you don't know or you think it's too troublesome to call the police, call Miss Wu or Dr. Lo or somebody, because without the data, we cannot have our local police station, okay, to request more personnel and staff to support and protect the community.
嗱，佢哋識講中文嘅，最緊要佢哋識講中文嚇。嗱，廣東話講得好好啊，講中文嘅。嗱，我哋鄭議員都識講中文嘅，有咩問題咧？你揾佢哋唔會話拒絕你啊乜嘢啊，叫你坐喺度半個鐘啊1個鐘唔理啊，冇呢啲咁嘅事嚇，冇咁嘅事。I always said that Mr. Colton don't let me just sit over there half an hour. Never. I always go to your office and say, Dr. Lo, come in. 鄭議員嘅辦公室亦都唔會叫你坐喺度，起碼半個鐘，唔會有呢啲咁嘅事嚇。佢哋講廣東話嘅，講國語嘅 ，OK。佢哋有咩問題咧？你同佢哋傾啱㗎啦。
一般咧，即係我哋做服務咧，同埋 Colton 嘅榜樣之下咧，我哋做服務咧。無論你哋係咪住喺我哋個區，你哋嚟到我哋辦公室或者 call 到我哋辦公室咧，我哋能夠做嘅，我哋都會做。因為咧好多時候華人都唔知道議員辦公室可以做啲乜嘢，你哋求助。我哋先聽咗接咗翻嚟之後啦，跟住我哋了解情況。譬如係 Colton，譬如你係住喺 Colton 嘅區，我哋先接咗做咗，跟住我再 email 或者打電話俾 Colton 辦公室。如果係莊文儀辦公室嘅，因為我哋政府有政府內部，我哋唔需要你跑嚟跑去，我哋理解你哋可能唔清楚去邊個議員或者去邊個辦公室去求助，呢唔緊要，你總之嚟到個 office。後面嗰啲嘢我哋處理 ，OK， 我哋唔需，我係從來做咗14年，從來未拒絕一個市民嘅。
Mr. Colton address 155 Kings Highway, telephone number 718-236-1598. I still remember. Yeah.
馬生，影張相，嚟企埋嚟影張相，企埋嚟。唔緊要啫，唔緊要。
Yeah, take a picture. Mr. Chu, you can send.
坐低人哋影相啊，睇坐低。
Okay.
Yeah. 影咗啦嘛？阿馬生得未啊？
影咗。
影咗未？ 應該 OK，thank you。
多謝你哋嚟啦。
多謝晒。
阿 Chang 你多謝你。